Okay, just.
Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Corporate Fiber and Materials Benchmark for all of our returnees. Today's presentation will be recorded and sent out to all registered participants and also will be posted on the Hub. We will have a Q&A portion at the end of the presentation, as well as opportunity throughout the presentation for questions. You can type your questions in the question box on the webinar doc. Any unanswered questions will be answered afterward via email. Now on to Liesl Truska. Liesl?
Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the second of our Corporate Fibre and Materials Benchmark Getting Started webinars. Today we're particularly happy to be introducing the program back to the returnees. So we wish you a very warm welcome back to the program. And here we all are. As you can see, there's a number of us involved in the benchmarking program, maybe a few more than when you first started with us. However many years ago you commenced benchmarking. But I'm still around. Stephanie Maurice, who's been leading on our uptake data developments, is now permanently on staff. We're happy to have Preena and Jessica join us this year. I think you've probably had the odd email or two from them already. And Corey Scolt, who is now with Corporate Citizenship, is still our partner on the circularity piece. And unfortunately, she can't join us today, but will be available for support throughout the cycle. And then leading on the data analytics and sort of the configuration side of the survey, we have Yvonne Tan and Sut Yin from our data center. Amish Gusay, one of our specialist textiles experts, is also on hand and has helped develop the program. And we have a new intern with us, Maria Fernandez, who has just joined us this year as well. So a full team all here to help and support you. For those that don't know Textile Exchange, just or those that do, a little reminder that our mission and our passion is to accelerate and scale the adoption of sustainable practices with a particular focus on materials and the raw material sourcing and supply side. So that's our focus, and that's where our benchmark comes in to play to accelerate and drive performance in sourcing and production strategies. And with our new focus on Climate Plus, this is even more important that we align our sourcing with programs and initiatives that will drive a lower carbon emission and potentially draw down and sequester carbon. So lots of potential in this area of Climate Plus from the raw materials perspective. And of course, this year we had the unprecedented introduction of a global pandemic. No one really expected this, although many experts say it was on the cards. And on that topic of climate and biodiversity and the global structure and fabric of our ecosystem, we're in a particularly important place and time to really look at how we can restrict even more degradation of the planet, and part of that is how we source and procure and use fibers and materials. And the time is now. We hope this benchmark program is a helpful, solid support pathway for companies on the journey to procuring preferred materials that are going to have a strong positive impact on climate, on biodiversity, on nature, and on communities, and will build more resilience and future fitness of your sourcing strategies. So this is why we do it. And I feel it's more relevant now than it's ever been. So you as returnees, I hope, are in a great position to take this forward, to accelerate and scale and lead the way. Next slide is just a really sort of strong positioning of why we benchmark. We need to know where we are now. We need to know what our status is, and therefore where we need to go and how we're going to get there. And that's what benchmarking is all about, and that's what our program is driving forward. So what are we going to cover today? Well, you've met the team. You've met, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm thinking as returnees, you probably all know me. I'm going to give a very brief program update, but just to kind of caveat that by saying that there will be a lot more hands-on, live and interactive opportunities to connect with me and the team over the course of the next few months. We have some exciting new support services to share with you later on. Steph's going to give us an update on the uptake portion of the program. This is something that is obviously incredibly important to the entire benchmark, and being able to measure progress both at an individual company level and also at an aggregate level. So more on the changes, and hopefully what you'll see is improvements in how we ask you about uptake. We're not going to look at circularity in much detail this time, but we are going to have a special webinar for that. And then we're going to take you into a group exercise. So I hope you've come prepared to participate. It's not too hard, but it will be particularly exciting for us to be able to have this dialogue with you and get some feedback from you on how we define a priority material, and more about that later on, and hopefully saving plenty of room for question and answers beyond that particular group exercise. So because we will be engaging you a little bit more deeply in the program, and we'll have the opportunity to take you off mute, you can introduce yourself and really help us in that conversation. We're applying the Chatham House rules, which basically means that names of speakers within this group won't be reported outside of today's conversation, and the recording will cut off before we start the second part of the conversation. So you won't be recorded. So please feel free to contribute in that discussion. Quick reminder, why do we do this, and why is Textile Exchange and our benchmarking program well positioned to drive corporate fibre materials as a benchmark? The top line is we need industry transformation. We need to be able to measure progress as a community as well as individually. So we're pushing hard for that credible industry level data to be available, to be transparent, and to be able to contribute to our industry's reputation and demonstration of how we're doing the right thing and driving progress. And then, of course, that benchmark, that roadmap that will allow you as a company to identify your gaps, where your strengths are, and how you can possibly share some of those strengths and strong points with the wider community, and really hone in and focus on where those gaps are. And this line that we draw between being a critical friend and helpful and supportive, it's a voluntary program, it's self-reported data, but that other side of the fence where we are that critical side, being able to perform to strong methodologies, have a review and validation process that is strong and robust, and we can all be confident in the information that you get, the information that we share more publicly. So, and if you go to the next slide, Jessie, this is a busy slide with lots of, I guess, dependencies on your data. So the bit that's circled, the benchmarking platform, is where you will put into your data into the system, and you will know what that system looks like now, and then that drives an amazing number of opportunities for us all. One is, you know, is your results and participation in the material change index and the family of indices that sits in there. And of course, it drives into that aggregate data opportunity where we can reflect back progress through our insights report, through our impact dashboard that models impacts and outcomes, and then these other syndicated products that your participation drives the improvement cycle that we go through to be able to give you really strong guidance material. And I know, Steph will bring up one of those processes as a case in point. I did want to talk very quickly about the biodiversity module. Some of you on this call are helping us with this, along with an incredible list of global experts on the topic. It's highly relevant. Everybody's talking about biodiversity. Everybody's talking about nature, nature-based solutions. As I said right back at the start, keeping our biodiversity intact and working on with regenerative practices will allow for that positive impact, that drawdown, sequestration, you know, returning carbon out of the atmosphere and into the ground. Huge, huge opportunity, but we don't have to start from scratch. And once again, as returnees to our program, your foot is in the door, so to speak. And of course, some of you will have taken this topic much deeper than others, but what we will be able to show you this year in our biodiversity pilot is that purely by completing components of the benchmark, you've already started your biodiversity journey. Now, there's a whole conversation there. We're working very closely with the biodiversity consultancy and Conservation International and as I said, a host of experts to develop this out for you, with the ambition of aligning with science-based targets for nature. And for any of you working within the Global Fashion Pact will know that biodiversity and nature is going to be a key part of that commitment. A lot more to say on that. So the framework hasn't changed at all, but just a flash of this hopefully familiar framework that the survey structure sits within. I guess that the only real big change in here is that leather is now a bona fide module. And I guess if you go to the next slide, Jessie, it will show, yeah, that within the fiber modules, you can see the long list of cotton options, including now the US Cotton Trust Protocol, which was accepted into the 2025 Sustainable Cotton Challenge, and therefore is included in our suite of preferred options in cotton. And as I said, leather is now a formal module coming out of the pilot from last year. And with that, I think a very, very quick rush through and promise for lots more detail. And please do start thinking of any questions. But I'll hand it over to you now, Jessie, to talk us through the updates of the cycle.
Thank you, Liesl. So welcome, everybody. I'm going to walk you through the cycle of the benchmark and through the different choices that you have in the benchmark. So regarding the benchmark cycle, we have 5 phases. So after closing the survey, always we go through the program review and upgrades. So we try to integrate all your feedback, of course, also make all the improvements needed for the next year. For the participation phase, this year, we are giving you a wider survey submission period. As per request of many of you, also we want to be more flexible given the current situation with COVID-19. We'll be opening the survey early July. And for the analysis phase, we have great news this year. We're going to do a rolling review, which means that as soon as submission comes in, we will do the review. But of course, we encourage you to fill out the survey as soon as possible, because in case there's any issue during the review phase, we will have time enough to go through it together with you. Then we will be moving to the reporting phase. So it will be between November and February 2021. And in that phase, we will be doing the company scorecard, the material change index, and the insights report release. And the final phase is the bench learning. Also this year, we have some updates. So we really want to offer you learning opportunities during the entire benchmarking cycle. So you will have this during the entire cycle of the benchmark. Then I will move to the different benchmarking choices that I think some of you are already familiar with that. So the participation, of course, brands and retailers can participate in the survey. But also this year, for the first time, we are opening the survey to manufacturers and suppliers as a pilot. Then regarding the survey selections, we have three options. We want to maintain that flexibility. So the first one is the full survey. In that case, that means that you have to fill out the full survey, and you will get a placement in our material change leaderboard, also in our material circularity index, and also in our material sustainable development goals index. The second option is a material module. This means that you will respond into one or more fiber materials modules, and you will get an index placement for each module completed. And the last one is the progress tracker. In this one, you will be reporting on your uptake targets and volumes, and you will get a placement in our material change index for all reported material. Regarding the scorecard options, once you have filled out the survey, we have been doing the review and verification from our side, you will get the scorecard. It will be confidential, of course, to all of you. And the scorecard will provide you with a year-on-year company is doing across the benchmark framework. So it's basically a tool to support you on your preferred materials journey. I will be offering a tailored way to communicate results, and of course, also a visual and identification of your strengths and of your areas of improvement. We have three different ones. So we have the standard one that is free of charge to all participants. Then we have the advanced one that will be displaying more information. It's free, but only for textile exchange partner level members, but of course, it can be also purchased. And then we have the premium one, that is the one that is displaying the full information. That has been a brief introduction of the cycle of the benchmark and also of the different choices that you have in the benchmark. Now I'm going to hand it over to Steph.
Thanks so much, Jessie, and hello, everyone. So today, I'm just going to walk you through a few graphs from the 2019 survey in relation to uptake, and then we're just going to walk through the changes that you will be seeing in the 2020 survey. So last year was the first year that you had access to the best practice fiber uptake calculation guide, which we developed in partnership with RAP in the UK, who oversees the Sustainable Clothing Action Plan, as well as the Partnership for Sustainable Textiles, the German Textile Alliance. And we sought to develop best practice recommendations for calculating uptake, which would be applicable to your reporting for any of these initiatives. We were really delighted to see that 83% of you were able to do your uptake reporting in line with the calendar year. This really does help us from a data comparison and analysis standpoint year on year. So that was really brilliant to see. For the other 17%, it's absolutely no problem that you reported a different time horizon. What is most important to us is that we have that consistency and comparable data year on year. So part of the data validation process that we will do for the 2020 survey is to really compare that metadata form year on year. And if there has been substantial changes, explore with you whether we are able to, tailor your previous year's calculation in order to kind of adjust some of those volumes and make sure that the data comparisons year on year really kind of add up and make sense. And this will support, your scorecard and some of the analysis that you will receive as a result of participating in the survey. If you could go back, Jessie. One other point on data quality and accuracy. Last year at the end of the metadata form, we asked you to report out on how accurate you thought your data submission was. So this was just finger in the air between 1 to 5, how are you feeling and how do you think that went? And 7% of companies said, this data is completely accurate and the quality is very high and we don't really see any areas of improvement. But that is a great opportunity because that means 93% of you have seen possibilities where we can potentially get more accurate data and more accurate modeling. So whilst the 2020 survey is not yet released and will be released in due course, we would really start encouraging you to look at your data, your 2019 data, and see kind of where you can potentially make some improvements and potentially also start doing those calculations. So in terms of the 2020 survey, we have some kind of exciting developments to share with you. We did receive quite a bit of feedback from the 2019 cycle, and the main difference between 2019 and 2020 is that we have centralized this uptake reporting. So instead of reporting this within each individual material module, what we've done is created a new section in the survey. So before you even do your strategy section, where you will enter all your uptake information. And I can walk you through that in the next couple slides. If you go back, thanks, Jessie. Some other changes quickly before we dive into that. So down historically was included in the fiber portfolio, but as leather is now a formal part of the survey, we kind of thought about where would be best for down to live. And because down is a filled material and inherently it's quite different to fabrics that are used in production, we have made the decision to pull this out of the fiber portfolio, and this together with leather will become the material portfolio. In the previous year's survey, we embedded the fiber calculator directly into each fiber module. So you as a company could enter the specifications for various fabrics, for example, and you could calculate everything within the survey. We received some feedback that there weren't enough rows, that it would be easier to be able to copy paste data sets in. And so based upon that feedback, we have decided to pull that out of the actual main body of the survey and instead include that within an Excel. So when you're in the survey, you're able to click a link and easily download that. And hopefully that will make it a lot easier for everyone to use. And that will be, a helpful tool for you for completing your calculations. Another big change is that we have kind of refreshed how we're collecting data on recycled materials. So we would really love to collect more granular detail on feedstocks, if known, as well as recycling types. So what portion of your recycled polyester, for example, is mechanically recycled versus chemically recycled. And we're hopeful that the new reporting approach will be a lot easier to use. And hopefully that means we'll get a lot better data that we can then report back out to industry. So as mentioned, I'll walk you through a couple slides now showing you the new structure. But we will be hosting a more detailed webinar only on uptake towards the end of July. So if you do want to kind of do a deep dive, or if we want to talk through like really specific questions, that would be a great time to do that. So in the new uptake section, The first kind of landing point is just to identify which fiber and material types you source. So this is a really basic tick in the box, but this will drive quite a lot of the sections of the survey. So if you are this company and you've selected cotton and wool, the subsequent questions that you will see will only be in relation to cotton and wool, and you will not be asked to, enter loads of zeros on polyester or nylon or other materials which you do not source. And here is an example of how wool, for example, can be reported. So you can see on the left-hand side, that is the list of the various wool programs in conventional wool, which is available for you to select for reporting. And you can kind of see that we've, in a way, combined the previous fiber calculator with the uptake reporting section. So here you're able to enter what type of product you're reporting on. So is this apparel, is this home textile, is this a mix of two? And similar to previous years, you just enter the volume and the unit. So we've retained kilograms and pounds to allow for that flexibility. And then within here, you are able to add on that conversion rate. So if you've already done your calculation separate to this, whether you've used the textile exchange conversion rates or your own, you can definitely just select fiber level and enter your data. But if you would like to do your calculations, but just allow for the system itself to apply those, you're more than welcome to do that. So if you see the last row there, conventional wool, product is selected under reporting tier, and the product conversion rate for apparel for wool is selected there, 2.13. So the reported volume is multiplied by that to include the total wool at fiber level. Previously as well, we did allow for estimates to be entered, but this was, again, in a different section of the survey. This was what was previously called the balance sheet. And we've now moved this up here. So whilst you're entering your uptake data, you can note that in this company's case, you have used recycled wool, but for whatever reason, you're unable to identify a numerical uptake volume for that. Maybe this is promotional product or some sampling, but for whatever reason, you don't have those volumes, but you are able to estimate that this is approximately 0.5% of your total wool uptake. So in entering that, the system will automatically refresh your totals and model that for you. So now going to recycled feedstock, we have standardized our approach on how we're asking this throughout the various material types. And as you can see on the left, we have grouped reporting based upon textile-based feedstock, non-textile-based, and then unspecified feedstocks. Previously, we asked you to enter metric tons here, but that became a bit difficult, or it added, additional steps to your calculation, needing to go back to Excels or refer back to your data. So instead, what we've done here is we've included percentages. So you as a company are able to enter those percentages to say, for example, 10% of this recycled material reported is coming from post-consumer recycled textiles, or 50% is unspecified. So we're hoping that that is, in a way, going to streamline that reporting for you. And also, because this will be quite standardized throughout all the modules, it should become quite familiar to you. On the right-hand side, you'll see that there will be a pop-up box for polyester and nylon. So if you do report use of any of those recycled materials, we will have a specific non-textile feedstock pop-up, which will ask you to enter the portion of your uptake, which is coming from plastic bottles, ocean waste, or other feedstocks. We're really excited about some of the new innovative fibers which are coming onto the market. And therefore, we'd really love to start capturing those other feedstocks. So we have ensured that the system should allow for this, and we can expand this in the future. Another addition for the recycled material kind of detailed reporting is really looking at transparency, and really looking as well at those informal waste workers, and if you have been sourcing from some preferred schemes. So We have had companies report in last year's survey, for example, that they've been intentionally sourcing fair trade certified or plastics for change or first mile, for example. And so we thought it could be a really great addition to start capturing that a bit more formally within the survey. So initially just really looking at transparency to that collection point. You know, have you done some due diligence, or is the supplier offering you in that transparency, and really understanding that rate of transparency across recycled materials for the whole industry. And then further, is there a portion which is certified under one of those socially responsible schemes? So we really look forward to receiving that feedback this year and reporting that back out to you, so you can understand where you stand and where industry currently is. And then on the right, we have an overview of the recycling processes. So again, this is one of the standard questions which will be asked for all the different recycled material types. And instead of having to go back to your previous reporting on uptake and look at the metric tons, here you'll just be able to enter those percentages. And this is really in line with feedback we received, where companies kind of said, you know, we know that all our recycled polyester is mechanically recycled, or we know 1% is chemically because we're doing, you know, lots of testing or what have you. So this should hopefully really streamline that for you and make it easier for you to complete in the survey. And so leather. So as Liesl mentioned, leather is now formally added within the survey and is beyond pilot. In last year's pilot, we allowed companies to report leather uptake in whatever unit or form that was collected within their companies. And many companies reported by surface area or took those surface area amounts and tried to apply an average weight kind of conversion to then report out by weight. So following the pilot and additional consultation with all the companies who reported on the leather module, we've developed a new methodology for leather uptake reporting, which will be released when you receive the survey very soon. In this year's survey, we're going to be asking that you are reporting the surface area of the finished leather associated with your company sourcing. This should align with information that suppliers are sharing with brands and retailers. It will also align with other industry initiatives such as the Leather Working Group and how some of those leather volumes are currently being tracked. We do recognize that there were a few companies who did not have access to this information currently, that, you know, their supply chains remain quite opaque, but that they did have access to product level information. And so the fiber calculator that I mentioned previously, that we've now turned into an Excel calculator, we are adding a sheet just specifically to leather. And this sheet is going to be quite unique. So what you will be doing is you can enter in the silhouettes of your products, which have main leather components. And based upon that reporting, you will then have an estimated surface area of leather. So for example, you could say, you know, I've put 100 adult leather jackets on the market, you know, 1,000 pairs of men's sneakers and 1,000 pairs of children's sneakers. And based upon that reporting, the Excel will share with you that surface area, which you can then report into the survey. Great. So that is just kind of a sneak peek into what's coming in the new uptake section. But just to reiterate, you know, the ideal date range for reporting, assuming that you can kind of align to some of those best practice recommendations, is January 2019 to December 2019. So hopefully, because that's now been 6 months later, some of those reports might be available for you to use for your uptake calculations. So we would definitely encourage you to start pulling those reports, refresh kind of your familiarity with the uptake process by looking at these guides, and definitely join us towards the end of the month if you want to dive a bit deeper into uptake and ask Lots of questions. But yes, if there's anything specific that we can potentially help you with in the near term, feel free to send me an email and happy to help and see how we can support you.